L'orateur suivant
The
est
next
Son
speaker
Excellence M. Brian
be
Bowler,
His Excellency
ambassadeur
Mr. Brian Bowler,
représentant permanent du Malawi,
Ambassador and Permanent Representative
qui
of
parlera
Malawi, who will speak
au nom du groupe africain.
on behalf of the African group. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I have the pleasure to speak today on behalf of the African Group on the review of the Peacebuilding Commission. At the outset, the African Group would like to express its sincere appreciation to the co-facilitators, Ambassador Sanku from South Africa, Ambassador Anderson of Ireland, and Ambassador Hillier of Mexico for their true commitment and passion with which they executed this noble task. I would also like to thank His Excellency, the President of the General Assembly, and his entire cabinet and the Uganda delegation for their leadership. Mr. President, this resolution before us today will not take us to heaven as desired, but may add to save us from hell. From the onset, the African Group has taken note that certain members of the P5 were not constructive in this process and even adopted a selfish approach. We are extremely grateful to the United Nations for what it represents and what it stands for, as well as for the opportunity it provides the membership dialogue for this very reason. In Africa, we view the United Nations as extremely relevant. The United Nations has developed its peace-building efforts, but no doubt there's a very long way to go. The draft resolution in front of us is making a commitment towards implementing of the recommendations that will contribute to strengthening the peace-building process. In December of this year, we will be at the 5-year mark since the adoption of the General Assembly and Security Council resolution establishing the Peacebuilding Commission, whose review is under consideration today. When the PBC was formed in 2005 as an intergovernmental advisory body to specifically focus on post-conflict peace-building situations and, more importantly, avert the relapse back into conflict, the expectations of the recipients of this service was naturally raised. However, as discussed in the review reports, these expectations were not adequately met. Again, 5 years on, when the PBC was up for review, it was expected that the review process would enhance its effectiveness. The review report and its recommendations carries the hopes of these people in post-conflict situations, whose fate depends on the conscious and collective responsibility to salvage them from the devastating effects of conflict. Most of these people are Africans. Africans urges all of us to put our shoulders to the wheel and make peace-building work. The tragedy of the most vulnerable, particularly the women and children and the youth, become the victims. It is not only immoral, but should be regarded as a crime if we who are privileged to be given the responsibility of providing peace fail in our duty. Diluting the peace-building final draft resolution any further will be a betrayal to our responsibilities. Mr. President, the conflict zones are living hell and require our committed and serious efforts to evaluate and reduce the suffering, as well as bring about real and meaningful peace-building process. Mr. President, at the risk of repeating what is contained in the report, I'd like to emphasize the following points that could help us enhance our post-conflict peace-building activities. These are, my first point, without prescribing to the Security Council how it should go about its work, there is a greater need to strengthen the relationship between the Council and the PBC. If we are to achieve maximum results in this relation, therefore, the Peacebuilding Support Office needs to be strengthened. Our long-term development should be at the center of post-conflict interventions. As much as quick impact programs are important, long-lasting peace can only be cultivated and sustained when people enjoy the dividends of peace that are embedded in long-term development strategies. To achieve this, we need to focus on comprehensive and nationally owned interventions supported by holistic systems-wide coordination and sustained interventions. The Peacebuilding Fund can only do so much. Post-conflict peacebuilding needs more resources, and the UN should devise innovative ways in partnership with other partners such as the international financial institutions, regional organizations, and funding institutions to sufficiently finance peace-building activities. The conflict prevention dimension of the UN could be the only sustainable solution if we are to avert the challenges that come with post-conflict solutions. We therefore call on the UN and the Security Council in particular to focus attention to conflict prevention strategies instead of expanding already scarce resources, resolving conflicts that could have otherwise been prevented. It is important to also note that there is a need to sustain the attention of the international community on the agenda countries. It is vital that support is continued beyond the fundamental peacekeeping and that it extends into building secure nations. On Tuesday, the 26th October, we commemorated the 10th anniversary of Resolution 1325, which seeks to put women at the center of conflict prevention, resolution, and post-conflict peace-building activities. Accordingly, for us to achieve sustainable peace, we need to involve women as equal partners in all conflict prevention, resolutions, and post-conflict building activities, including governance. It is important for us to involve the civil society and governments and national frameworks that must be at the people's center. In conclusion, Mr. President, we align ourselves with the statements made by the Permanent Rep of Bangladesh on behalf of the non-aligned movement and support the adoption of the draft resolution entitled Review of the United Nations Peace-Building Architecture, and hope that we all will take necessary steps to implement the recommendations of this report in our collective pursuit for sustainable peace. We also call upon the membership to embrace this resolution, particularly the P5. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. President, that the process of coming up with this resolution, we felt that some members may not have understood our needs in Africa. We are sadly, most of our efforts in the peace-building initiatives are targeted in Africa. We call upon the support for this resolution. I thank you, Mr. President.
Je remercie l'ambassadeur Brian Bowler
I'd like to thank Ambassador Brian Bowler